We are now recording. Where is everybody? 6:57.
I know.
Hello, Rich.
Some people come in right at exactly 7. I'm always early in case I have problems with my Zoom thing.
Right. Well, I had to come in through Firefox. I couldn't find my Chrome method to get in. I don't know what happened. Maybe that's why it didn't automatically record.
There's Arthur.
Hello.
Hi, Arthur. How do you pronounce your name?
Robotham.
Robotham.
Yes, Robotham.
That's how it sounds.
Is that English?
Yes.
Yeah. The German side of my family is Walter, but the English side is Potts.
Oh gosh. Interesting.
Yeah, my mother was her family's from England, Sturtevant and Chadwick.
Well, my family, interestingly enough, is not from England. They are from Germany and Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe, the Balkans. They were both, my grandparents were both adopted.
Oh, wow.
And
Cool.
my grandfather was adopted by his aunt, who was married to an Englishman, but she was German. And there is wide speculation that my my grandparents were actually ethnically Jewish.
Oh, so they didn't want to.
And were fleeing Europe.
Right.
Right.
Because they there were a lot of things, tells that my grandparents didn't know anything about their culture, but they had, folk traditions.
Right.
And other things, and I didn't really know much about the folk traditions, but I came to find out that they were old-fashioned Yiddish traditions.
So they probably were Jewish, and I don't blame them.
And so they just never really, they weren't like, I wouldn't say they were religious, but they weren't that religious.
Yeah.
They were willing to go with the flow with whatever happened to be the majority religion in the area was. So, like, for instance, when my grandfather was around Protestants, he was Protestant. When he was around Catholics, when the family was around Catholics, they were Catholic. Wherever happened to be the majority religion, they became the majority religion.
Yeah, that's how they dealt with stuff,
That was 19th century.
Yeah, but that's how they dealt with it. There was a lot of Jewish. I don't know why we go after groups, but people do. So
there's been wide speculation, but we don't really know anything about the family. There's been wide speculation that they were ethnically.
You'll have to do your ancestry.com. And I have a relative out west just contact me. She's part of the Walter clan, and we were texting each other. It was pretty cool. Pop out of nowhere when you do the ancestry.
Right.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Rick.
So at Ellis Island, they changed my grandfather's name from his middle name to, they changed our last name to his middle name. So I'm probably not related to any other Nassifs in anywhere other than what's in Manchester. So, so are we all set, everybody?
Yes, sir.
I'm looking to see if I see 9 people. I do run this on my iPad. And then I have my computer here to bring up documents if I need to. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul. Paul, you're mute.
There you go.
Now he's.
Oh, hello.
Hi. Now you're not mute.
Yeah.
Oh, bear with me a moment. I'm just bringing up the most recent copy of what was sent to us as a Word document. Actually, you know what? Yeah, because that has the comments in it. Did we, Mark, did we receive at any point a document with any newer comments in it, or is it the same one we worked with from our last meeting?
Oh, we have not updated the overall comment document yet
That's fine.
from the last meeting.
Let's work with it. You know, we don't necessarily have to get feedback in writing from any of the members or anyone participating. But if we have it, great. Columbia Charter.
And just for clarification, Linda,
Mhm.
is Jen's handling updating that document, right? Not you?
As far as I know, all I'm doing is taking the minutes, but if
Okay.
to do something else, just let me know.
All right. Well, I would just make sure that your minutes you're taking and Jen incorporate into the document so we keep a running history of what we've said and agreed to or
Okay.
suggested. So if you could help make sure that's a priority with Jen, that'd be great.
Mhm. Okay.
We were also going to try to be able to have the working draft shared or posted on the Zoom meeting so that we could be kind of reading along together.
Yeah,
Are we ready to do that tonight?
Oh, geez.
I know we talk, because it is hard. We have to pull up another computer to follow.
No, we're
along.
not ready for, because that would mean I'd have to have the document easily available. So I'll have to work on that for the next meeting. I apologize.
If Rick sent it to you in an email, could that work? I mean, as much as I like looking at all of you, it's more, it's better for us all to concentrate on the written word.
Right.
Well,
You know what
Which-
I'm going to do? I will, I'm going to take the document with the updates and comments as of 12/22. And
Right.
I'm going to log on from the computer I have that on and we can share that document. So it'll be just
Excellent.
like another user.
Okay.
I think
Excellent.
that's what I did last time.
It does make it easier than having to reference. I do it on my Kindle. I look at the charter.
Give me just a moment and I'll get that all set up.
and hello, Mark, and hello, Lisa.
Hi.
Who's got the
Is that
dog?
your dog, Lisa?
No, it's, you know what, I'm
They're
looking at
mine.
3 dogs and a cat. They're all prowling.
Oh,
Those are my rescue poodles.
Oh dear.
Audience of canines.
Yep, you got one of them, that's for sure. The cat's looking at me like he'll be up behind me in a minute.
Well, the Columbia Views went to press today, so you should be getting it next week. Okay.
Good.
That's always nice.
Rick, are you coming on again?
I'm joining from my other computer
Oh,
also.
okay. Okay.
And so I've joined there. Now I want to share a document. That's going to happen in a second. Help me out. I needed help last time from somebody. I was prompted. Oh, share screen.
Share screen. That's when I've done it. I just do share screen. And what does it say?
You have to then find the document. That's the key.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I will share this document. That's now my full screen. Can everyone see that well?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to go to section 4. Well, let's go through. Let me open the meeting. I apologize. First up, You know, I
approve it.
won't go through the rules of conduct. Do we have any members of the public that are joining us, or is it just commission members and support?
I think it's just commission members.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks just like commission members.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So one question, Mark, do we need to formally approve the agenda for this meeting? That's an agenda item.
I would just approve it as normal.
Then I'll make a
protocol.
motion that we approve the agenda as presented for the meeting for January 28th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any dissenting? Because, okay, I can see you all on my computer, but not on my iPad now. Okay, so that motion passes. The minutes of January 12th, 2021. Any corrections or amendments from any members? That said, then I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll
second
second.
Linda, you're going to sort that one out.
I will.
Okay.
I don't remember getting that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain?
I abstain, Mark,
Oh,
since I wasn't there.
thank you. So the motion passes. Audience of citizens, anybody? No, then we'll move right into old business. I don't think we want, I would suggest that we pass by this evening unless there's something that somebody feels should get in the record this evening on sections 1, 2, and 3. We made really good progress last time. I really appreciate that. So the plan was to go right into sections 4, 5, and 6. And I'd like to try and keep on that schedule so that we get through the whole charter as soon as we can. Then we'll circle back on and summarize the perspectives at a meeting after we get through all of the sections. That sound like a reasonable approach for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so let me move on to item 6, new business, review of charter sections 4, 5, and 6. Let's go right to section 4, which is the first selectman. Let's see, that is on. Is anyone dizzy from scrolling?
Not yet.
Okay.
There it
Would it
is.
be better if I make this one page filling the whole width of this screen?
Yes,
or
please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see.
We can see it better.
Okay, you want me to zoom in on that?
Yeah, if you could, just a bit.
That would be good.
To the right.
That's impressive, Rick. You're doing good.
I know, I am impressed. I couldn't do
Wow.
this.
I think you need to stay in
Oh,
charge of this.
perfect.
Okay,
A
there we
little
go.
bit too much.
It works. It
Yeah.
works. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the start of, let's see, section
That's a little
3,
too
5.
much.
So we want to go to section 4.
4.
Here we are. Want me to scroll this and any suggestions from anybody? Do you think going to any comments that are added at the end of section 4 would be effective, or do you just want to scroll through the section?
Why don't we go to the comments?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So were no comments on the first selectman section. Anything anybody would like to bring up? This isn't the last chance to visit this. Just keep that in mind. That's just this opportunity. Let me scroll through, give everyone a chance to read through it. We're all in the same place.
Can you
So to
reduce
speak.
it? Rick, can you reduce it just a little? Because at least on my page, it bleeds over into the pictures.
Okay, let me see.
If you change your view to gallery in your Zoom meeting, you might have better luck. Side by side
That was for
gallery.
Paul.
Oh, that's for me?
Yeah,
No,
Paul.
I couldn't see it either.
If you go side by side gallery and then you can,
That's good. That's good like that.
Yeah.
Is that better? Can everybody read it in this format?
Yes,
Hmm.
Okay. So we can see a little more of it at a time. I've read through this and I didn't see anything that was pressing from my perspective that I would like to see a change. No members have made a comment.
Judy, you had said something about salary.
Yeah, I was thinking to increase the salary because it may, we may get more people who want to run for the office if
I
it
don't think
pays
you
more.
put a number, but would you want to put something like a reasonable?
salary's not in the charter.
Right, it's not
Yeah.
mentioned.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
not.
It's up to
I
the
don't
Board
see
of
that.
Selectmen.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be, because that would restrict the change.
Yeah, because the person who would benefit would be voting on it.
That's the problem of salary being done by the board, right?
Right.
Well, but presumably the first selectman would abstain.
And then you would need a super majority in order to pass it, because you're five, so then you would need 3 of 4. So it actually kind of works.
Yeah, there's specific dollar amounts, just as the conversation we had about going out to bid and specific dollar amounts. I think where possible, if we can avoid specific dollars in the charter, it's better handled by delegating authority. And this is already the domain of the Board of Selectmen.
So Judy, what they're saying is you could make that motion at a Board of Selectmen meeting and have 4 people agree that you're underpaying the position for how important it is, and then that could get into the budget.
Okay.
There's always the potential for the Board of Selectmen, I think, I don't know, absolutely, to defer to a town meeting to approve that kind of change.
Yeah.
It is possible because the selectmen can take anything to a town meeting if they want to.
Thank you, Henry. Okay, I'm gonna keep scrolling. Tell me.
Yeah. I would say on Article 4, there was nothing from a legal perspective that came up as complicated over the last 10 years to make note of. So I think moving on is fine.
Okay.
Everyone good with that?
I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Okay. Article 5, Town Administrator.
Oh, here's a problem.
I
There were
like the
no-
fact that I'm the Chief Administrative Officer. I want a new business card. I like being chief.
Yes, we can put that in the charter, Mark.
It's in the charter.
No, that you get a new business card.
Oh, okay.
The business card we can put in the charter.
So there's been no request for anything to be brought up for section 5, no comments from any of the members.
No,
Mark,
and
how about you?
I think I agree with how it's written. It's working fine. I have no problems with Article 5.
Any comments?
It's very clear.
Okay, I'm gonna go on to Article 6. General elections, nomination, election of state and federal officers. I'm not gonna read this out loud. Why doesn't everybody take time to scroll through this again?
So my only thing was in minority. Are you going to minority or just staying with 6.1?
I want, I'm asking if anybody wants to bring up 6.1, then we'll go on to minority if no one wants to.
Okay.
I have a question under 6.1, and maybe Rich Roberts could address it. And I'm always curious is what's the difference between an elector and a voter? Because we always talk at town meetings about qualified voters and their our electors are if somebody is qualified to vote federally in another town but has taxable property in the town of Columbia, does that make them a voter but not an elector here?
Yeah, yes, that generally, it's section 7.6 of the statutes talk about who's eligible to vote at a town meeting. And it's anyone who's an elector plus anyone who is the owner of property on the grand list listed with a value of $1,000 who's over 18 and a US citizen.
So people can be electors and not own any property.
Correct.
Because that sometimes gets confusing at the town meetings, because they'll go through, they have to have at least $1,000 worth of property and, but when I read it, I thought if somebody can be, say, 19, don't own anything and can still vote because they're voters.
Right,
Yeah, electors plus
residents.
voters who are the property owners can vote.
All right. In section 1.4 on definitions, we have a definition of elector, meaning any person possessing the qualifications described by Article 6 of the Connecticut Constitution of 1965 and applicable Connecticut statutes, and duly admitted to and entitled to exercise the privilege of elector in the town of Columbia. I would ask Rich to just double check the constitutional reference to make sure we're still okay with not needing to update that. General statutes is fine, but then it says, and duly admitted to and entitled to exercise the privileges of an elector in the town of Columbia. Duly admitted, I'm assuming must mean that they must have to register to vote?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have a definition of voter. Oh yeah, excuse me, we do. We have qualified voter. It's just not under V, so that's why I missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're good there. That's what I wanted to double check.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
going to go back to section 6.
Yeah, so can somebody restate for me the difference between an elector and a voter?
An elector is someone who's on the list as eligible to vote for town and state officers. It's basically a registered voter, which kind of confuses it. Those are the electors because they're able to elect officers. Voter is anyone who is not an elector, who owns property in the town valued at least $1,000, is over 18 and a US citizen.
Thank you.
And presumably you can only be an elector in one town in the state of Connecticut, your principal domicile.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay,
okay.
so let's go into section 6.2 minority representation. This has been something that I would hope that we would address because we've been having problems filling boards. And I like the idea of minority representation or maximum representation by any one party. But I had a conversation with Mark Walter earlier today because I was really looking for ways to address the concern I have about filling boards and commissions in town. And if we could make an exception to this, if it's acceptable from a Connecticut statute standpoint, maybe with the acquiescence of the party that would have a right to certain representation that may not fill those seats. So let's say we had 5 members of a commission and we had to be maximum of 3 from one party, but we can't fill all the positions. Any other registered party that would have the right to fill those positions, if they couldn't fill them, would have maybe a right to grant an exception to that to the town. I'm looking to fill up the boards and commissions more easily. That's the goal for my perspective.
So you're thinking that, let's say if it was a Republican position, then, and they couldn't find somebody, then the Democrats would have to ask the Republicans for permission to fill it, that kind of thing?
Or the town would ask them for permission to fill it
Or
from
the town?
any qualified member
Yeah.
or any member that was willing to serve. You know, so this is preserving the right of, in this case, let's call it a minority party, to fill a position. But if they don't opt to fill it or can't fill it, I don't want to see it go vacant.
Uh,
I would take a little different point of view on this because we've had quite a bit of experience with this with open space. And that for whatever reason, the majority of people who seem to be interested in open space are Democrats. And I actually had to switch from being a registered Democrat to
Unaffiliated.
unaffiliated, right, I'm sorry, unaffiliated, so that another member could join. I think there's a real dichotomy between those boards that are elected, like 5-pack or selectmen or whatever, and then those that are non-elected. I don't really think politics should enter at all into a committee like open space. I don't think it should be broken down between Democrats and Republicans. I think what you're looking for are people that are genuinely interested in making a contribution to whatever commission or committee it is. And I really think this is old hat, and that it just, and in non-elected committees or commissions, it really doesn't belong at all. That's my position.
Okay.
So are you proposing that we segment this into elected and appointed categories?
Well, I
Paul?
think there's a difference between that there can be an argument made that something like 5-pack or the Board of Selectmen, that you could say that you continue on a basis like this. But when you come to non-elected committees or commissions, politics should have no place at all in it. You're looking for people that are genuinely interested in making a
Right.
contribution.
I think that makes sense.
The only problem I have with that, and you have a great point, is that the minority representation, the purpose of the minority representation is to have a minority representation. And so when you have all people of the same thought processes, you don't get that full dynamic of what you could get if you have that minority representation preferred.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the idea of the other party being able to say, if we can't fill it, let's ask permission. But to just automatically dismiss it, you can end up with a situation where you only have one side of an argument being heard.
But you're not arguing.
And I understand what you're saying, Paul. I get it.
Yeah,
Because
but in open space, you're just looking, as an example, because I've been on it for years now. You're just looking for people who really want to make a contribution to open space. And it really doesn't matter whether they're Democratic or Republican.
Well,
because it's not a political discussion.
But at the same time, Paul, there's people who view open space very differently than what you
I
view.
bet you anything. I've never had one of those come to say they want to be on the commission. That's
And
not.
that's a yet,
It doesn't work that way.
but that's yet. And I'm just saying that by having the ability to have people who are interested in maybe changing the point of view or changing or opening the conversation, that's what the minority representation is for. And to eliminate it really weakens our broad view of what we're supposed to be. It's not supposed to be majority rules. It's supposed to be everybody has a voice.
maybe I hear what Paul is saying, and I hear what Lisa's saying, and in general, in an ideal world, you want the right people and the best people to be on the committee if they'll volunteer. But there's a check and balance here. Part of it's statute, but part of it is in the charter here, to make sure that neither party hijacks the town. And I would suggest that there might be a middle ground because it's an interesting point that I haven't thought about. So I'm thinking out loud here. But perhaps the appointed ones don't need to follow the minority representation, but it may be important to require a supermajority vote to appoint, so that at least the minority party on the Board of Selectmen has to have at least one person agree to the appointments, and or to raise his hand or her hand and say, we need more minority representation. And that would at least provide a check and balance from it.
No, it sounds more complicated.
No, actually, I think that works.
Yeah, you don't want to have, let's say, 4, say, Republicans and 1 Democrat on a commission.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa.
On an appointed commission, Judy, really, nobody talks politics in open space.
Oh, I guess I'm talking about the other
Trump
commissions.
never came up, ever.
But the point is,
Okay.
Henry's saying that the Board of Selectmen can appoint, and then if everybody agree, if 4 out of 5 agree, so you get the supermajority on the Board of Selectmen to appoint more than a supermajority of one party on a commission.
And that gives the selectmen the ability to control the decision in each case.
It's not a bad idea, Henry.
Ultimately, whether it's the Board of Selectmen or input from the town committees, I'd like there to be able to have for there to be the ability to have an exception to the minority representation. So we can fill the boards and commissions,
Right.
and whether it's appointed or, Paul, what you say, everything you said is accurate. Overwhelmingly, our politics in Columbia are not partisan. There are some aspects of it that are, but I know on planning and zoning, almost every vote is unanimous because we talk to the point of understanding each other, and we talk to the point where we're almost always in agreement because we take the time to do that. And I think that's probably true through most of the type of processes and boards and commissions that we have. There are some things that people don't agree on, and I understand that, but we're a rather harmonious little town. But filling the positions, especially that's my goal. And
Yeah.
so
I have an idea.
the supermajority approach that Henry proposes could make great strides toward the town being able to fill those positions.
See, I'd rather it go through the different chairs, the town committee chairs, Republican or Democrat, if we're going to ask for an exception rather than the Board of Selectmen. But and we do get unaffiliated people to fill the positions. But the major, not all of them. I know there's problems with getting some of these commissions filled. But we do, like Board of Ed, we put 2 unaffiliated people in because they were qualified to do it as our Democrats, but we put 2 in there. And 5-pack, we put 1 in there.
Can I ask Rich Roberts to weigh in here on what the statutory requirements are, so that we don't step out of bounds with our creativity here?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a starting point, I'm not entirely comfortable that the minority representation statute is something that you can waive by charter. There's a provision in the statute that says nothing in this statute prohibits you from enacting a charter provision that provides for a greater degree of minority representation than is contained in the statute, which sort of leads to the conclusion that you can't enact something that provides for a lower degree of minority representation. That said, I think your chart of numbers is a little more permissive or restrictive than what the statute says. For example, under the statute, if you have a 5-member board, you can have 4 from one party. if you have a 7-member board, you can have 5 from one party. So you've kind of built into here, greater minority representation, at least on 5 and 7-member agencies than what the statute provides.
So what you're saying, Rich, we can't, from a charter perspective, we can't waive and go below the minimums that the state statute designates.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Is that applicable to just elective office or also appointive?
No, it applies to every public agency that
Okay.
is not elected by district.
Well, then maybe this becomes a simple argument. If everybody's in agreement, why don't we go to the statutory minimums for minority party representation to give the town more flexibility in filling them, unless you see a downside on a specific board or commission or something like that.
I think if you do that, I think there's grounds for having 2 charts. Because I think minority representation at the 5 and 3 level for the Board of Selectmen has served the town well, just for the purposes of what we've been discussing. It helps foster a non-political environment type of situation. And there may be other elective boards that might do that. So we might want to preserve this requirement here, because I know from past charter commissions, that was the level of concern. They wanted to preserve what we're just talking about, the apolitical nature of the town. And they thought that the best way to preserve the apolitical nature of the town was to have increased minority representation. It may be appropriate to table this for people to think about as we look at the list of towns looks at the list of agencies and elective bodies and so forth, and to determine that for this one or these 2, we should stick with what we've got in the charter already, and for everything else, we can go to the more relaxed statutory position in order to help recruit.
So what would be let me make an assumption for a moment, and please somebody jump in if I'm going down a path that you don't agree with. Let's assume that all appointed boards, maybe we could go toward the statutory minimums. And then we would have to identify the elected boards. Which boards would we want to stick with the current chart, and what other boards or elected boards or commissions would we possibly want to consider a different chart for?
Yeah, that makes
That's a
sense.
reasonable question, certainly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and section 3.1 already provides that no more than 3 members of the Board of Selectmen can be from any one party. But the other elected agencies are basically 2 pages down in section 7.3. You can see what they are, and which ones you want to preserve a higher degree of political equivalence.
there's also the staggered terms, which I think we should definitely get rid of.
I do
I
too.
think the staggered terms are important. I think
Could-
that.
could we not
especially
get
with
into the
Board of
stag-
Okay, that's a
Education-
different topic. Yeah.
Could we bring up the staggered terms later? Because I think that's a
Okay,
real
yeah.
important discussion.
I agree.
So let's focus. So the question here is everybody in favor of exploring? And I'm just going to use that term in that manner, explore, having for the initial part of this consideration, that all of the appointed boards, maybe we go to the statutory minimum, whatever that might
I agree
be.
with- I
For
agree.
all of for the elected boards, go through them one by one and decide which ones we would be comfortable at the statutory minimums and which ones we'd rather keep according to the current chart or section 3.
Okay.
How
We
do
could-
you do I mean, how do you go through the process of doing that without appearing to be kind of haphazard? I understand we're trying to find people to fill spots, but at the same time, if we're going to just cherry pick which elector boards to do this
No, we're
to,
talking about the elected.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of our important functions here is determine, maybe, I would hope we determine which ones we would relax the minority representation on because we feel they are inherently non-political as a group. I mean, that's, my goal has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with
No,
filling.
I understand that, but I'm just saying for purposes of trying to stay in favor of everything going on. I mean, down the road, and like right now, you have a hard time filling spots. Hopefully, that's not going to continue to be an issue. But like down the road, from a statutory point of view, I just see you having issues of saying that, well, we're going to have this board that's elected. Like when you're doing elected versus appointed, that's a clear marker. Like that's a clear line. See what I'm saying? It's like clear, like appointed boards makes sense. We can do this, all appointed boards fall into that category. When you're doing electives and you're just picking which elected boards to play with,
I don't think we're playing with them. I think what we're trying to do is optimize them for the maximum staffing level.
And I
Yeah,
think
that's what I'm saying,
we can talk to the people who like in charge of the different boards and see what they think. I think you may be questioning how we make that decision. And I think it's talking to people who are on the boards and see what they think.
Art, what do
One
you
of
think of
the
that?
beauties of our current charter that we've been operating under
Mhm.
is the fact that we aren't real political in town. And I think that's by virtue of the elected positions having this minority representation that we've had. And we need to give honor to it because we're a pretty solid town as far as people getting along.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
Yeah.
so that's sort of a question of, is it causation or condition? Because, you look at some of these boards, the Board of Ed, Planning and Zoning, and FIPAC are all 7-member boards. I don't know if the people who sit on them would argue that any of them are very political, but maybe they would. I think Judy's suggestion of kind of asking those people is probably a pretty good one.
Well, let's look at 5-pack as an example. Rich, what's the statutory minimum for 7?
Statutory maximum is 5.
5.
5.
I know when I was on 5-pack, there were times I thought people voted, the Republicans would vote one way and the Democrats another way. So I mean, I mean, not to say it was terribly political, but there were definitely some of that.
And that's what minority representation is about.
Well,
Yeah,
that's true, but it's a minority. So if everybody votes along party lines, the majority is going to win, whether there are 5 of them or 4 of them. It doesn't change.
Yeah, but one
If a
person
board
is
is
easier to-
political, it
And what
doesn't
if
really
one of
change
those
that.
people, what if one of those people is unaffiliated? So I was on the Board of Ed and it was the 3-4 and there were times that it was very much cross party lines, but there was a lot of crossing. And so if you go 5-2, then it becomes a big difference. There's a big difference there. Between 3-4 and being able to waive 1 and being 5-2 and having to waive 2, there's a big difference. And there's something to be said for it in the elected positions.
so Lisa, when you were on the Board of Ed, did you see people vote party lines?
Sometimes
I always thought they did not on the Board of Ed, but I could be wrong. So you saw that sometimes.
I did.
Yeah. And I'm sure not all the time. And it certainly
No,
wasn't.
absolutely not. Okay, so when I was first on the Board of Ed, it was a very contentious Board of Ed. This was back in the early 2010s, and it was a very contentious Board of Ed. And then we were able to get much more reasonable. And then you saw a much bigger crossing and much more consensus.
Right.
So, and if it had been a 5-2, I don't think it would have changed to a much better board that worked with the town. I could have seen that really go the other way. And the fact that there was minority representation was that we were able to change the tone of the board. if we had only two on that board, it would have been much more difficult to change the tone of that board. That board was not good when I first started.
Okay, Rick, I think Judy's suggestion that one or two of us talk to board members and bring back some feedback to a further meeting.
And yeah, I would hope that it would be the input, not just from a board chair, but from some sort of perspective from that whole board. Have a discussion. That was a good suggestion, Judy. Lisa, you bring up really good points. I mean, I've heard a lot of very logical approaches here. It's a matter of what do we want as a group, and what will the town want?
Rick, I
I've
have an idea.
I've just seen too many vacancies, and I would like my idea is to have flexibility to fill vacancies. That's why I had hoped for some approach that would address just that.
Yeah. See, I thought you being able to fill them with unaffiliated people has really helped a lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
but you're
You
asking,
can.
Yeah.
right now, Judy, right now, we have a vacancy in open space. And the only way to fill it is to have the person that's most interested in joining go from Democrat to unaffiliated. I mean, that's a big move for some people.
Right.
Well, sure, because then they can't vote in primaries anymore.
Right.
So maybe what we need to consider is a rule that says that if a person of the required party who is interested in filling that position cannot be identified, that then you go to the less restrictive
Well, hold on.
requirement.
Do we have problem finding people to fill the elected positions? We've already suggested that on the appointed positions,
We
which
changed.
presumably is the place where we're having trouble filling vacancies,
Right.
that we can go with the statutory minimum, and the statute won't let us do any better than that. So if we're already at the statutory minimum and somebody has to change to unaffiliated or the opposite party, that's the struggle we have. But that's with the state of Connecticut, not with ourselves. If
But
we're
I think the answer, though, Henry, is that yes, sometimes it is very difficult to find people who want to run for an elected position. And the fact that you can't run somebody because you've already got your four.
I wonder, again, this is just trying to be creative and wondering out loud, what stops a Republican town committee from nominating a Democrat?
Politics?
Nothing. We've done it before.
I mean, to fill a vacancy,
Yeah.
you could reach out and pick somebody who's unaffiliated or from the other party, and if they're willing to run on your ticket, but still be part of the other party. I mean, there are plenty of politicians that are members of the Green Party, the Democratic Party, the Independent Party. There's no reason you have to be a member of just one party.
Right. And that's how we have gotten, there are a lot of unaffiliated people that have run, well, a few, not a lot, but if they have run for different offices.
But Henry's question was, what's to stop, his example was the Republican Party from nominating a Democrat to fill a seat
Right.
that's not supposed to be filled with the Democrat. And I think the answer may be that person's a Democrat.
Yeah.
If
It
there,
would stay a Republican seat if the Republicans put up a Democrat.
Yeah,
Right.
the person would have to agree that they're running as a Republican for that position.
But they stay a Democrat for voting.
Right.
yeah,
Right. So
I mean,
that's the solution.
if the Republicans were to appoint a Democrat to fill an elective vacancy, that person would count as a Democrat. But if the Republicans nominate a Democrat to run for office and they get elected, they count as a Republican for minority representation
Right.
purposes.
Because we did that with judge of probate years ago. The Republicans nominated the Democrat judge of probate from Bolton years ago. And we did do that. I was at the convention.
But that's not a seat, that's not a position that,
I'm just saying that it can be done. The
Yeah.
Republicans can nominate a Democrat.
well, that's essentially a cross endorsement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Rick,
That's
bring it
kind
back
of
in.
different.
Rick.
So maybe we've got to, I mean, the commissions, I'm thinking, could be an issue is the Board of Selectmen, 5-pack and Board of Ed. Now, it looks like planning and zoning is not as, you're saying that it's really, you don't vote on party lines.
But it becomes a problem if the whole planning and zoning board is Democrat and another Democrat is willing to serve.
Right.
Then I think our solution is the Republicans agree to put that Democrat up in their seat so they can still vote in elections as Democrat, but they're in the role of planning and zoning as in the Republican seat.
Yeah, but I think the
Well, how
question
is
is,
all of this different from what Rick suggested to begin with? That if there's an opening, that somebody from another party can fill it.
It's only for elections that you can do that.
Wouldn't be for appointing vacancies after an election.
Correct.
Okay, so appointing, they'd have to change their party affiliation, is what you're saying,
Yes.
to
Wait.
fill a minority role from another party.
Wait a
And that
minute.
can be a problem. Some people will not change their party
I would-
affiliation.
Right.
Rich, I have a question. What if somebody is elected as a Democrat to a commission and then after they're elected changes their party affiliation to Republican?
They, I'm trying to remember how this one works.
Boy, that's a,
I think it
Right.
only becomes an issue when you've reached the limit. And if you reach the limit, then, people can switch. But it only becomes an issue if one party has reached the limit and you want to add someone in. So if you have, right now you have the Board of Selectmen with 5 members, you can only have 3 from one party. You
I
elect
was,
3
I was,
Democrats.
I was assuming we were at the limit. So that's the context of the question.
Yeah,
So,
and I guess where I'm going, I'm trying to work through the analogy or the question is, you have 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans. One of the Republicans switches to Democrat. So you have 4 Democrats and 1 Republican. That's fine because at the time they were elected, the 4th person was a Republican. The issue comes when you have the next election or fill the next vacancy, it has to be a Republican, regardless of who created the vacancy.
all right. So there's ways around this that, there's a way of the process working through this. I mean, requires flexibility. I'd be in favor going forward of sticking with the current schedule for minority representation for elected positions and on appointed positions going to the statutory minimums. And I think that's a very simple solution that's easy to administer, and just exploring that there are other options for the elected positions that makes me comfortable. From my perspective, our discussion tonight's been overwhelmingly productive.
Personally, I like it as it stands. And then I think Henry had said using a supermajority because the Board of Selectmen appoints the commissions. So having a supermajority on the Board of Selectmen to go beyond that. So you can keep that same membership maximum from one party. And then if the Board of Selectmen chooses to go beyond that, they can, but it takes a supermajority on the Board of Selectmen. I don't know how you write that up, but I like that suggestion from Henry.
That sounds reasonable to me also.
I thought we just discussed that we can't do that because of the state statute.
No, well, they could do that as long as the state statute was also met. So that
Okay.
if we've got a higher level in our present thing, they could take it to the lower level if they wanted to by supermajority vote.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
All right.
Art,
I was
for
confused by that.
example,
Sorry.
Hey, so explain that again. I think I'm confused.
Yeah, but I think what Rick said, I mean, do we vote on things in this, in this commission? Or do we just debate things?
no, we debate it so that we can come to the town with a proposed document.
But in order to get
How
to
do
the
we- how
proposed
do we
document, we
agree on-
will,
I mean, we could debate this all night long. How do we agree on something? Like your proposal, I think is on spot. And I would like to hear from others as to, you know, I would just like to put this to, bed, you know, and
Well, let me
Can
phrase.
I jump in? So Paul makes a good point, if, you know, because sometimes we can talk all night. So ultimately, if we're going to make a recommendation as a committee, and Paul, if you think we're heading in a way that you sense you want to do, or at least the committee will do, then you should make a motion that we propose, you know, X, Y, Z. So that's that. I can talk about that procedurally. But I have a point that I wanted to make as a follow-up from what I said before. Our original reason for discussing this was there are openings on committees that aren't being filled. And we want to fill them because that's in the best interest of the town. Now,
absolutely.
we heard that there are state statutes that might restrict us in some way. So I'm asking a question. This is for the attorneys present. If there's an opening, and there's an opening because they can't find a Republican, for example, and then we put in something that allows, you know, someone from a non-Republican party to fill that spot because there are no Republicans that are willing to step forward. I'm not a lawyer, but who's the aggrieved party? Who can actually complain saying, oh, we don't have somebody from our party when nobody wants to run from that party? Is it really an issue or a legal issue at that point if nobody steps forward, and because nobody stepped forward, we take someone from somewhere else? I'm from a logic standpoint, I'm kind of stuck on that.
Well, I
well,
think,
Mark, we can always take somebody who's not a member of the majority party to
Right.
fill an opening. The problem is when you've got the maximum number of members from the party that is the majority on the board, and there's an opening, and you can't find anybody to fill it from any other party, including unaffiliated.
So my question still remains. So who is the aggrieved party? Who's going to complain that another Democrat got added when no one stepped up?
In the elective situation, the Secretary of State's office has been known to get involved in that because they have to certify the ballot when it's a statewide election. And we've
Okay.
had issues talking with the Secretary of State's office about the fact that we have a different supermajority voting thing than the statute does. So there is some state surveillance, if you will. I'm not sure, and maybe Rich can talk to this, as to whether there would be any state surveillance if we appointed somebody to the Open Space Committee and we'd blown our minority representation unless the minority party said something about it.
Yeah, thank you. You understand my question. You definitely already answered it for the elective aspect, but I am curious about the appointed.
I think the Secretary of State and Elections Enforcement wouldn't get necessarily agitated at an appointed board being out of compliance with the statute. However, there are two possibilities. One, the minority party could say, hey, wait a minute, you know, you're packing this. Alternatively, someone who is aggrieved by any action of the commission could also
Right.
bring it kind of back
Thank,
and
thank
saying,
you. That,
And there-
that
yeah.
definitely answers me. Throw my idea out the window. We
And
can't go
one
with
of the things I was thinking is that 10 years from now, somebody could say that the action that the committee took in 2021, when
Yeah.
they were not rightly constituted, is not legal, so we can vote on it again.
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
try- I'm gonna
Yep,
try
I
and move
withdraw
us-
my suggestion for sure.
Let me, I want to frame all this for everybody because I'd like to try and move us forward. Can we, for the moment, assume that there isn't the will of this group to make any change about minority representation on elected boards and
Well, you
commissions?
can't assume that about me,
Okay, so
because
Kate,
I
you're not
I
in
would,
agreement with
I
that?
would change those things. I just feel as though, it may be all nice and everything, but, we've had situations where the Secretary of State have said to us, well, you can't run that person because they couldn't win because of the balance on the board. And, or someone will automatically win just because they're from a certain party, no matter who gets the most votes.
Yeah. I think that.
And to me, that's not what a democratic election is supposed to be. I'm talking small d democratic. I think to the greatest extent possible, candidates who can get the most votes should win the seats. And minority representation prevents that from happening in some cases. Not to mention the fact that sometimes it makes it hard to find enough people to fill the minority seats. And if that's going on, if the voters of the town want to elect 5 people to a board of 7 from the same party rather than 4, who are we to tell them that they can't? I just think that that's not how that's supposed to work. It's supposed to be the people who get the most votes win.
Okay, so Kate, you'd like to go to the statutory
I would. Now, as Tammy points out,
maximum allowed membership?
that would not affect the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen, there's a different section that says you can't have more than 3 selectmen from the same party.
Okay.
So if you're thinking that this would change that, it won't, even though this says,
So-
5-member boards, et cetera.
So we're talking about 5-pack Board of Selectmen, Planning and Zoning,
Assessment appeals,
assessment appeals.
that's it.
Board
Okay,
of Ed.
And Board of Ed.
Board of Ed.
And I agree with Kate.
Okay. I would be in favor of that also. Lisa, you spoke against that.
I am against that. And, we are a republic, and democracies, there's one thing about a democracy is you can have mob rule, and minority representation is very important in a republic. So
Understood. Mark, how do you feel about that, Nart?
If you're saying this is a motion and we're voting on it, I vote no.
No. I'm just trying to get a perspective. I usually like may not be familiar. I worked with planning and zoning for a lot of years. I like to just get an idea where everybody stands before we kind of go to a vote. I'm not proposing we vote this moment.
I'm not in favor of that.
You're not in favor of it. Okay.
Is there reason to just let everybody think on this to the next meeting? We certainly.
That's what I'm
we
going to propose. I just
Yeah.
would like to know how everybody feels.
I like the idea of doing it, for the non-elected positions, kind of going with the, what the state guidelines are. But I guess I do have some trouble losing the minority representation for the
Some of the elected.
for the elected. I don't know about all the elected, but certainly for some of them.
Okay. And Art?
Yeah, I like the fact that there is minority representation, and I like the fact that the town takes that very, very seriously for elected positions. I was initially unclear as to Henry's a proposal about the non-elected positions, but I would be okay with Henry's proposal.
Okay. So non-elected. Okay, so let me just summarize what the options will be, and I think we should spend more time at another meeting talking about this. So it seems like we're balanced in some feel that the statutory maximum should be maintained. I mean, the maximum in our charter should be maintained. Some feel that we should go to the statutory maximum. I wasn't sure where you were on that, Judy. And then for some sort of change to the appointed board so that we can fill the boards, it seems like there's a idea that we're open to that, whether it's by supermajority or changing the numbers. Let's move on from that with that understanding, and getting that minutes. And then I think all of us, I'd like you to think about it. This is obviously that's dear to everybody's heart.
Yeah.
And let's go from that perspective now, if we could.
Could I say one last word from a historic point of view? This has been the toughest issue with the last two Charter Review Commission members, and there's been more creativity and more open-mindedness shared tonight than I heard before. So I'm very optimistic that you guys will work it out.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we won't. I think we realize there's some concerns that we should address. The key is addressing them in a fair way that doesn't eradicate the rights of one party versus another. You know, Lisa, you bring up a lot of very valid points. I heard a lot of good discussion. I really appreciate the mind power that's gone into this evening. Very much so. So that's kind of where we are. Eligibility for office. I don't know that anybody has anything, breaking a tie, anything, or vacancies. There was something about breaking a tie that was a comment. It was from you, Mark. This is, now we're in the comment section.
Yes, I don't remember what I said before about this whole article and all of our discussion tonight. We've talked about elections, and in the fourth line, it talks about, or in the case of a question at referendum. I don't know if that belongs in this section, and I can understand why you can't have a tie when you have an election for a person, for a position. But my understanding, unless we want to change things, is if there's a proposal to do something and it's a tie vote, it loses. So I don't think this whole, or in the case of a question at referendum, should even be in this section of the charter.
Okay. We can visit this on another evening. I'm going to try and wrap this up for this. Everyone's in it.
Okay.
Could I also add to the 6.4? I think that in the second to last sentence, there's some language I don't understand where it says any election equipment, software, voting methodology, or then it says, or initial records thereof. And then it goes on to say the use of results of which are not subject to legal dispute may be used in such special election. I don't know what initial records thereof refers to. And so I think we need to look historically at that sentence and see if some part of it's gotten garbled or what the thought was behind those words.
Good point, Henry. I see what you mean. Okay.
It may just be appropriate to eliminate them. That's what I'm suggesting. So.
Okay.
And Rick, for future discussion on the duties of the first selectman, the only thing I remember I forgot to say was it's silent on the fact that the first selectman is the chief of police and the legal traffic authority. And it might be the case that the whole board of selectmen is the legal traffic authority. But I'm surprised that the charter doesn't address those two key aspects of the role.
Okay.
Good point.
We'll highlight those and bring those up at the next time we meet. Okay.
Well, I think both of those obligations are imposed by statute rather than charter.
Oh,
Okay.
Rich, thank you.
So by being silent in the charter, we reference immediately to the statute.
Rich.
Right, yes.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. All right then. Anything else tonight, everybody? Thank you. This is very productive. With that said, and there's no audience of no citizens. Any commission member comments? Anything anybody would like to say before we vote for adjournment? I'll make a motion that we adjourn then.
Second it.
When's the next
I'll-
meeting?
Next meeting, adjourn to our next meeting, which is on February 9th at 7 PM.
Do you want to set an agenda as to which articles you're going to take up at that meeting?
I'd like to, that's a good point, Henry. Yeah. I'd like to readdress the point you brought up about 6.4. And if there's any more information about the chief of police designation of the first selectman and what the designation of traffic authority is, we'll bring that up, but then we'll move on to section 7 and on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's say, yeah, let's say for that meeting, it will be, I'm going through, I think 7 and 8 will be more than sufficient. There's a lot in section
Yeah.
8.
And
So
once we get the budget review, I think that's a whole meeting in of its own,
Good point. Okay.
finance and taxation.
So I'll make a motion that we adjourn, and our next meeting is on February 9th at 6 PM. And the next meeting will be section 7 and 8 and what we need to address for section 6.4. Okay. And Judy, did you second that?
Second it. Yep.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you. I
Good night.
appreciate
So
it.
much,
Good
Rick.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
Night.
Well,